I basically like kind of with my job, what I ended up doing for them was like, hey, I basically ran the play for them. Like they had to do was write the check. So like places like Smoothie King, Chipotle, because all those places have to call me like when they want to come to my city, right? So they're like, hey, we want to come, but we just want to be close.
Hey, that's boss talk right there. Let me stop you, man. That's boss. Hey, this man said they gotta call me when they want to come to my
I
city.
mean,
Look at that right there,
he
man.
comes through me. Let me say that. So
Welcome to
basically,
this episode of the Business of Athletes podcast, where we cover the business of athletes from all angles. And on this episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Cameron Rice, former track athlete at Troy University, and now the head of economic development for the city of Troy. Cameron, welcome.
man, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great. Been watching your podcast, been keeping up, and excited to be able to talk some things today.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your time. So, how I like to start out, man, I just like to give you the opportunity to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Okay. Cameron Rice. So I'm originally from the 256, Huntsville, Alabama. Got a track scholarship to go to Troy. Been in 2013 to 2018. From there, ended up landing a job with the city, helping out a lot with economic development. In a nutshell, pretty much helping bring businesses to the city of Troy. Married to my beautiful wife Faith. No kids, two dogs, and man, that's pretty much I'm basically doing everything. Got a couple other entrepreneurial things going on the side as well, and so I'm pretty busy, but grateful for every opportunity the Lord has given me, and man, excited to chop it up and talk some more about it today.
Yes, sir, man. So let's talk about your college career real quick. Let's talk about from high school, Huntsville High. I know that. You know what I'm saying? You went to Huntsville High. So you went to Huntsville High to Troy. What was that? What was that transition like? What was your recruitment like? All that. Just give me all of that. Like I wasn't a track athlete. I don't know how that goes for track athletes. So tell me about that, bro.
Well, we don't get as much love as football, but I'll say we. So I went to Huntsville. Kind of, I guess you could say, I really had a humbling experience. Never lost a race in middle school. Got to high school, got my head beat in that first year, pretty bad. And honestly, I remember my mom telling me this, just like, hey, don't really have a way for you to pay for school for you. So like, hopefully, like basically, can you figure it out in a sense of like, hey, get on the track, grind. And so that's all I knew was just running. Then towards the end, probably about my sophomore year, qualified for state in high school, and then my junior year, same place, very high in the state. Then my senior year, ended up winning. Well, got recruited by a couple SEC schools, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Took those visits, and funny story, people are like, man, how in the world did you end up at Troy? And I'll keep it short, but basically, Troy had been coming to my high school. And I just kind of blew them off. I was like, man, I'm not going to go to no little small school like this. I had already been to these. I had one visit left. My mom got in my car and she saw a letter from the coach, and it was literally on the floor of my car. She was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just a little letter from the school." And she was like, "Oh, we're going to visit." She was like, "If they've been coming up here," so came to Troy, visited, offered me a scholarship, and honestly fell in love with it. It was my last visit, and I was like, I guess I'll come here. They were paying, and then also I had an opportunity to compete right out the gate and not have to worry about being red shirted or anything like that. So that's usually what we look for is, hey, what's the best opportunity for us to be able to get on the field or on the track or the court, whichever one
Absolutely.
it is. So as much as I loved Auburn at the time, my dad went to Auburn and played basketball there, so that already kind of had a little. They kind of had a little leadway, but he even told me, hey, you need to go where you can play and compete right out the gate and make a name for yourself. And so that's kind of how my recruitment was. It's a fun process. Enjoyed it, but obviously where I'm at now in Troy, love it. I'm crazy to say I've been in Troy 10 years now, which I would have never guessed. But love it. Just won the Sun Belt Championship this past weekend, so football is
I
rapidly
saw that.
moving, and so we're back on the map, I guess you could say.
Yes, sir, man. It's a crazy thing about Troy because if I had to look back at it, I don't think I got the Troy offer, man. I got the UAB, I got the South Alabama, and coming up, I would always look at. So we had guys from our high school that went to UT Chat. It was two older guys that I really looked up to went to UT Chat. So I always looked at UT Chat. I always looked at Troy, schools like that. And I just always wondered why they never offered me, man. Because we went down there for a baseball tournament one time. I saw the school. I was like, yo, it's pretty nice down
Yeah,
here. It's close to the beach, everything, man. But nah, Troy's a great school. Zach Branner, he went from Buckhorn to Troy. So, and y'all been a giant killer for a minute in football when it comes to
yeah,
y'all went and got LSU one year. So nah, man. So it's funny though that you say that you went from middle school and to high school, and then it was that transition. What was that transition like from high school to college?
man. Honestly, it was about the same, right? So I
Yeah,
went to in my class, so I really wasn't expected to go to Troy, just because I had one state, and most of the in-state like state champions end up going to Alabama or Auburn. They don't really go to Troy, so I mean, if I'm being honest, I came in kind of like head real full, like, oh yeah, it's on. Like I'm about to be the main. And then I was the only person in my class that didn't get redshirted, or that basically competed and traveled at every meet, freshman wise. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna go in and go out here and dominate it. Same thing. Got my head beat in every week. But I think it was such a good pruning process for me because it gave me an opportunity to learn to like, hey man, like you good, but everybody on this level is great. Like
right.
everybody in high school have, I think the funny story to kind of sum it all up. I remember when I first got to Troy, I'm like, yeah, man, I won state. I had set the school record at Huntsville. It was like a 30-year-old record. Well, everybody at Troy was like, oh yeah, I got the school record at my high school and I won state. I'm like, dang, like I thought I was a little different than everybody, but like
Yeah,
everybody was literally like, nah, I did the same thing you did, bro. Like
yeah,
here too. And so it kind of like leveled me in a sense of like, okay, I'm not better than anybody else, but you just have to find that edge in college. And I think that was like the biggest thing for me was like, obviously we all went to practice the same times, and college is not. There's opportunities to do a little bit of extra work, but obviously if you do a little bit extra, it could hurt you at practice. So it's the small things I think I pay
yeah.
attention to: the eating, the going to sleep on time. I mean, my teammates used to clown me because I'd be going to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock during the week for college, but we had practice at 5 a.m. So I was like, look, bro, I ain't built like that to stay up till 12 and be able to compete.
That ain't me
Yeah,
either,
it's
man.
not me. And so I think, I got joked on a lot about it, but I think it ended up in the end, by the time I graduated and was able to have a couple Sun Belt championships before I left and be on a couple school records when I left, I think it was all worth it. But it was, I mean, they would clown me all the time, like, bro, why are you going to bed so early? And I'm like, it's 5 o'clock. I literally need 8 hours of sleep. So you need to
Right.
be going to bed now. And so I think it was a very humbling experience though going, but I enjoyed every bit of it. I was fortunate. I was actually telling somebody this story the other day, which you may laugh at this. So, probably my biggest beating I got on the track, man, I had to race Tyreek Hill in high school, bro, my senior year. And he literally broke the national record in the 200 meter that same day. I like, if you go Google it on YouTube, YouTube it, you'll see me getting dusted. Like, I've never been beat like that in my entire life.
Wait, where is he from?
He's from, I want to say Georgia.
Oh, so this was like a track
Yeah, it
AAU
was a
thing.
track meet.
Okay,
So I
okay.
got that beating right before I went to Troy, like that summer. Because I think he graduated the same year I did, 2013. But man, I've never been beat like that before in my life.
Man, it's crazy, bro, because that man just a different type of
Man.
fast. Like even at this level, like even at the NFL level, like it's guys that run 4.2s, 4.3s. Like I play with them, right?
Hmm.
But his is a little different. Like I don't even know if I should say that on the platform like that, but
Right.
it's like the turnover and it's different. It's different to watch, man. So it's funny to hear you say
Man,
that, bro,
hey,
because it's
even in the track world, he was like that, man. Because I remember when I saw him, I had just won state that year in Alabama, and we had went across state to Georgia. I think we were at Westlake, actually, where Cam Newton went to high school. And
mhm.
they kept talking about him. This is before he had blew up football wise, so like nobody really knew him. Like I think he was going to Oklahoma State, but he wasn't like this big recruit that everybody was talking about. And I was like, yeah, they got this kid from Georgia, and we're running the 200. So like the 200 is my event. So I'm like, man, I'm finna crease this dude. And man, as soon as that gun went off, all I heard was tick tick tick, and I was like, bro, there's no way that he is catching me this quick. It was over.
Turning, bro. He turned them feet over so fast.
Man, I was like, man, I've never seen anybody pick me up this quick. And next thing you know, he crossed the finish line. New national record for the 200 meter. Man, it was like a 40-year-old record that he broke that day, like
That's crazy.
20.1 seconds. He could have ran the Olympics that year, basically. That's how fast he was out of high school.
That's crazy, man. So you did the 200. Remind me, what year did you graduate from Huntsville?
I graduated Huntsville 2013.
13. Okay, so did you ever run at state versus
Oh,
Marlin?
yes. We went at it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
high school. And people don't
yeah.
realize
He was another guy that was pretty good.
Marlon could have ran in the Olympics too in the hurdles. Like he was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't know that.
he was like
I did not know that.
yeah. I don't know if he ended up running at Bama. I'm not sure. Maybe one year. But my senior year, which was his junior year, man, he broke the national record for high school in the 300-meter hurdles. I think nobody's broken it since.
Man, that's crazy, man. The crazy thing about track is, so I ran track my last year,
Mhm.
right? Not really as a track athlete, but
Yeah,
just I did it because I was pretty. I thought I was quick,
mhm.
but I was like 205, right?
Yeah.
So I'm out there, I'm running. I'm like, yo, I could do pretty well. I was jumping pretty well, man. My knees, bro, like hitting it. Like one, I didn't buy the right spikes for jumping. So I did the triple jump, the long jump, and
Mhm.
then I did the 100, and then I did the 200 one time because my
Yeah.
coach asked me to do it. I never do that again, bro. Bro, it was the worst thing. It was the worst thing I just it was terrible. But bro, I brought the wrong cleats, so I'm hitting the triple jump, and I mean I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Like I was winning in meets and stuff. Man, my heel was hitting the turf, like not the turf, but the track so hard, bro. That's
That
crazy,
jumping
bro.
is hard. Like I,
That jump is
I'm not
hard.
really coordinated like that, so I'm just a go and do it. So I never did anything outside of sprints, 100, 200, and the 400. I
Yeah,
tried the 800 one time, not my thing.
but I say all that to say though, like football players who can run track and be as successful as like Tyreek and Marlon, like it's crazy because you need so much size in
Mm-hmm.
football, but it just doesn't translate to track. So for somebody like Tyreek to, have that type of
Mm-hmm.
skill to where he can go back and forth, that just show you it's a different type of
There's a lot more.
talent.
I mean, it's just I never played football, dude. Like people tried to get me to play, and I remember someone was like, "Man, you'd be a great kick returner." I said, "I don't think people realize the faster I'm running, the harder that hit gonna be when I get hit coming off a kick return." Like I don't think that. Oh man, you'll never get hit. I said, "Man, what? Like what you mean? Somebody
It's go happen.
somebody gonna tag me. Like it's just there's no way I'm just gonna outrun everybody." And then two, I started learning. I think you may know Trey Rogers, Chester that went to Lee. I think he plays for the
Yeah,
Browns now. But like I remember him and Rudy was telling me about this. Rudy Ford talking about how like special teams was just so like there's so much more to it than like just running. He was like, no, there are like zones, and you got to create these like I can't remember what he called. It was like a gate, I think, is what he called it. And I was like,
mm.
bro, it just seemed like y'all just kick the ball and just run. He was like, nah, it's a lot
it's a
more.
it's a lot to it. It's a lot to it. It's a lot like you mentioned, like just everything that you had to put into like the small things, the details of track, like off the field, like on the field, like on the track. I'm sure there was details that
Mhm.
you had to learn about track that I probably don't know. Like it's a lot of details to it, bro.
Yeah,
Like it's a lot of it. It's a lot of small things, a lot of details that a lot of people don't really see.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's talk about that real quick. So you mentioned like it's the small things, and
Hmm.
for me, like when I think about business, like a lot of things that I read, a lot of things that I do as far as like investing, right?
Hmm.
I see a lot of parallels from athletics and sports
Hmm.
and like training and performance into the business world. What do you see like from your days as an athlete and a I say professional, like when
Yeah,
cats are in college, we're professionals. Like we're
essentially.
training and do you know what I'm saying? Like we're at a professional level. So like what do you see crosses over as far as like things you think about on a daily that you
Hmm.
thought about as a track athlete and now as a business professional that you think about?
Right. So, man, I think this is to every athlete. And I say this when I talk to college kids or high school, like everything that you need to be successful in life, if you become a college athlete, especially like, and I think it matters the division that you're in, but I think every intangible is already there, whether it's time management, the attention to detail, be able to focus on, certain aspects of things. And then I think that one thing that I've transitioned probably the best is, and we'll probably get into this more, is just like the networking aspect of it. And just like, man, I probably wouldn't have my job that I have today had I not been a Troy athlete. And I'll kind of, I don't know if I'm getting the cart before the horse, but I think that like,
Nah, go ahead. That's where I was going next, actually.
yeah. So like, I met the mayor of Troy my sophomore year of college, right? So I'm at this conference. It was like a Black History conference at Troy, and he was one of the, well, he was a mayor, so he had to speak at it anyways. And he wasn't a black man, he was a white man, but still that didn't really matter. But I think at that point, like, he was there and he kind of stood out because it was a Black History program, and so he kind of spoke and really gave some good word. Well, after, you know, and this kind of goes into the fear thing. I remember he came off stage, and in sports, you hear people say, "Well, man, just try it, and if you fail, like, just try it again, like, just try it." The worst thing that can happen is you can just do it over, right? So he came off the stage, and I remember my teammates. I'm standing there, and he came off, and I was like, "Man, he was really good. Like, I wonder if I could like learn from him, right?" So I'm like, man, I'm gonna go ask him if I can get his number, and like, we can have lunch, because Troy's a very small town. I mean, there's 20,000 people here, so it's not like this. It's not Huntsville or Atlanta or Chicago, where like he's busy. But I think that I'm a citizen and a college student. He'd take the time. So they're like, man, he'll never talk to you, man. He ain't got time for that. And I was like, okay, worst thing he could say is no. So I walk up to him and I was like, hey, my name's Cameron. I run track at Troy. And so instantly, I think also from the athlete side of it, which I think a lot of athletes should leverage, that's an instant conversation for people. Oh man, you ran track. Like, tell me more about it. Da 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 da. And so with that, I mean, it was easy to strike up a conversation, but also it gave me access that maybe not a regular student may have, but you got their interest. Like, and I ran
Yeah.
track, bro. Like, people who play football and basketball got way more influence than on a college campus than a track athlete. And that's not a knock on track athletes. It's just they're bigger sports. And long story short, he's like, hey man, yeah, I'd love to go to lunch, love to mentor you or whatever. Man, for 2 years, that dude took me to lunch for every month till I graduated college. Graduated, basically was like, hey, I really need some help with like, some young blood. Basically, I was 24 at the time, 23 at the time. Really need some help with economic development. Would you be interested? Well, I technically didn't really go to school for it. I kind of like went to school more so for like in a sociology, which is like the study of cities, but it wasn't directly tied to that. But he was like, hey, you're really good with people. You can sell and really development is about like relationships, trust, and selling the vision of your city. And so he was like, you really love Troy, which I did. Man, that opportunity just from this one conversation this past year, got an opportunity to be in the same room as the president of the United States because I met this man. Like, had I never
Mm,
had this
that's
conversation with him,
crazy.
it's something that like only a God could do. Like, God opened that door for me. Like, I text him because so President Biden, and regardless of what your political thing is, it's the president of the United States. I don't care who it was. He came to Troy this past year, and the mayor was like, "Hey, do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Bro, yes, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity." So he came to Troy and got a chance to be in the same room, like chop it up, all that, man. And like that's something I'll never forget. But I say that to say that like had I never had that conversation with him 4 or 5 years ago, I would have never been here. Like I'd never be in this situation. And so I tell athletes now, like, hey, look, use your influence, use your platform now to make those connections. Like, it. You went to Vandy, man, the boosters, them people, once you're gone, you're not as relevant to them as you are when you're on the field. So
Right.
those
Right.
people can set you up for opportunities, whether it's business wise, whether it's, you know, just opportunities to go do certain things. And I mean, obviously winning helps. Like, I think if you were successful and did those things, like, which is why, I actually suggest a lot of athletes to, if they make the right connections, to stay in their college town for a little while if they don't have like other things. Because man, if you stay there and you're still relevant, like I've seen it happen at so many other like colleges. I've got a buddy who's at UT, went to UT. Man, he's like the mayor in Knoxville now. Like played football there, but has been there ever since he graduated. But like can get connected to anybody just because he played football at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, like this was back when Eric Berry was playing, so they were really good then, really good team. And so I think that is probably the biggest thing that I learned. Probably was like, hey, you got it. And my dad taught me that, like, hey, look, bro, don't waste this opportunity while you're at Troy. Um, Meet as many people as you can. Like leverage the fact that you are an athlete, and man, it's been great being here. You know, like I said, Troy's a small town, but I love it. And it's afforded me a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of people I probably should never be in the same room with. But, thankful the Lord opened those doors and thankful that I'm, here now and doing something.
Absolutely,
That's a
man. So
long
when you
winded answer, but
now it was a great answer though. It was a great answer because I feel like a lot of student athletes don't they don't understand the skill that they have as far as like being on the team, right?
mm-hmm,
And so like when you say networking, I feel like a lot of people think that networking is like this nasty word,
mm-hmm,
right? Like I'm gonna get into these rooms
mm-hmm,
and I'm gonna find somebody and latch on to them and hope that they bring me somewhere. But like networking is really, to me, it's about trust, right?
mm-hmm,
Like you reached out to him, you reached out to the mayor, went to lunch with him. Obviously you're good at speaking, you're good at talking to people, building those relationships. But like it's when he needed somebody to do a job, he goes to somebody he can trust, right? And that's what a team. And to me, that's what a team is all about, right? Like I don't want to be on a team with somebody I can't trust. And I feel like being a student athlete, like people might not say it out loud, like it might not be what people are thinking the most time, but when they see that you've been a part of a team for 4 years, 5 years, right? It just kind of gives them that signal, like, hey, this is somebody I can trust. This is somebody that'll show up on time, every day somewhere for 4 years and do what they're supposed to do. Be selfless, be selfless. That might have sounded like selfish right there.
no, but I think it makes sense. And like with my honestly, like in my job, like I deal with a lot of like employers and honestly, I'll tell you this, and this is probably the biggest thing I learned. But the number one like person that employers want to hire, and this probably will blow people's mind, are former student athletes. And this is from top companies like Lockheed Martin, things like that, where they're like, hey, no, they've already got everything that we are looking for. If you make
Right.
it through college, and you know this, but any student athlete, if you make it through 4 years of college, graduate, all that, I mean, that means you're persistent. That means you've got a good work ethic. And once again, you've got to trust the teammates because you're not going to be on the team if they don't trust you. Like,
Right.
it's not one of those. And
You're not gonna last
yeah, you're
long.
not going to last long. And so those are three main things that people are looking for. And then also your time management. Like, okay, if you're on a team for 4 years, you obviously weren't showing up for practice late because if you were showing up for practice late, you wouldn't be on the team. So you're dependable. So I think if people actually leverage that more when they go into interviews and like I said, you don't have to be in my field of work, but just in general, like if you put that on your resume that you were a collegiate athlete and honestly, if you have good academics, it's even better because it's like, okay, now I know they were handling their business on both sides. Because I remember at
Right.
Troy, our coach was telling us this, and I never realized this until really I got hired. And then also like just talking about it. I remember the mayor said this, but he was like, y'all really need to strive to be like an academic All American. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to survive. Like, I'm trying to go to practice, basically make decent enough grades to be able to compete. And when I say decent, I mean like a 3.0. I'm not trying to make a 3.6. That was just me. Now, it wasn't my best mentality at the time, but when he said it, he was like, no, it says a lot to your employer that you had the opportunity to do this. And then your employer will see that you were able to handle the business on the field and off. So I think that is also something that like people should pay attention to and try to focus on handling both aspects of it as a student. You're a student first, then an athlete. So
Yeah. Absolutely, bro. And that's one of the things that I think about a lot. So, like, I've had conversations with people in marketing about like this NIL stuff and becoming a creator. And I'm all for that. I think it's great. But I feel like if that gets in the way of like the main thing you went to school to do is to be a student and an athlete, then it's opportunity cost, right? Like there's always, for every choice you make, there's a choice that you're not making,
right,
right? So if you're, and like I said, I'm not against, the creator, the student athletes being influencers and stuff like that, but I just know it takes time,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of times, if you're taking time from, if you're taking time to do that, you're taking time away from something like
Right.
your academics, right? And that plays a big role in how far you go. Because another thing with networking that I've heard is like a lot of people say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
But who you know doesn't mean anything. And then I've heard it's not what you know, but who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows you doesn't mean anything if you don't do good work.
Right.
But the one that I've heard that sticks with me is like it's not what you know, it's not who you know, and it's not who knows you, it's who knows your work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
like that.
So like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The mayor, he knew your work. He could say, you know what? I got a high probability, high confidence level that Cam is gonna do his job and
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna bring value. And that's really what, when you step into the business world, when you step into like the corporate world, people just want to know that you're gonna bring value
Mm-hmm.
and help them grow. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's huge, man. I think those are great points. So on the networking side, bro, just a couple questions on the networking side because I know that's something that you do well. Obviously, you're personable, and you're not afraid of that no. So you gonna reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you would tell a student athlete that is afraid of networking, is afraid of like putting themselves out there and reaching out to somebody that they want to speak to? What would you tell them? What are your best pieces of advice there?
Man, I think, and I get asked this a lot. I think there's not really a specific answer. I think the biggest thing is being yourself because I think a lot of people, one thing, and people can pick up on this, right? So like, you don't want to get in and try to be this robot. So like, I don't want to give you like, hey, make sure you start with like, how are you? But I think, man, just lead with like your story. Like one of the main things I always start with is like, hey, where are you from? Like, tell me your story. Like, and people, one thing we know about people, they love to talk. We love to talk, like, love to talk about ourselves. And that's not in a like selfish or arrogant way. It's just like hey, I want to tell you about what I got going on. And like,
Yeah,
you don't really have to do anything else but listen and pay attention and just pay attention to those things of like, and I always say this, remember one special thing about that person. So then the next time, like when you bring it up, it means a lot. Like one of the things I always ask and I always try to do, if somebody has like a family and like they have like a daughter or a wife, I don't just say like, hey, how's your wife doing? Like I'm dropping a name like, hey, how is, if his wife's name's Suzanne. How's Suzanne been doing? Like last time we talked, and like you would be surprised how much people light up when like, oh man, he remembered. Like he remembered what my wife's name was, or like he remembered what my kid's name was. And like I think that that is like a very big thing is like pay attention, like we said, to the small details, the small things. So that way, when you talk to somebody again, it's like, all right, they actually were paying attention and not just like letting it go through one ear and go out the other, right?
yeah,
So like, obviously, be yourself, pay attention to the little details, and then man, always try to like, I would say, stay in touch. And one of the things, and I do this with you, I do this with a lot of like friends, even if I don't need anything, I'm always, hey man, what's up? Like, how's the family? How you been doing? Because I feel like life is so busy between, everybody's time is just everywhere, attention spans everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, all TikTok, Twitter, all that. So it's like we're all in this like isolated bubble where it's like, hey, just check on your homies and see how like they're doing, or check on your new people that you connected with and go to
yeah,
lunch. Like you don't have to text all the time, which that's cool, if you can. But I mean, I think that that is like it's a missed thing now. Is like people are so caught up in like, oh, I'm just gonna keep in touch with them on IG. It's like, no, I'm gonna go hang. Let's sit down. Let's chop it up. Coffee, lunch, however you want to do it. But man, it's not a. I think with networking, like you said, when you hear that word, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I got." Especially if you're, I'm more extroverted, obviously, but I think even as an introvert, like maybe go in and don't try to overthink what you need to say or how to say it. Just, hey, what's your story? Tell me your story. Where are you from? You have kids, family, and people. You don't really have to do much. They'll just start talking, talking,
yeah,
talking, talking, and
yeah,
just pay attention to it. You don't have to keep all the details because it's gonna be very hard, but take one or two, check in with them, and man, it will mean the world to a lot of people. With that, and so I think that's helped me in my job. In a sense of like, obviously I'm always on the go recruiting businesses and bringing them to Troy. But even with like now, we talked about this when I was in Chicago. Like a lot of my, friends, which I'm very fortunate, are buddies, acquaintances are in the league now. And like now they're trying to do things with their money and invest it. And so now it's not hard for me to be like, hey man, I got an opportunity for you because I've been chopping it up with them for years before they even
Yeah.
got to where they are now. So it's not like a, how it is. We talked about this too. Like I'm not just like a, hey, I'm trying to get your money. Like, nah, bro, I've been with you like since high school. And like,
Right. And but you've been doing that though, not as an opportunistic thing. Like you just do that because that's who you are. And that's I feel like that's what a lot of people miss. Like you can't do it as an opportunistic thing. You just gotta do it because like you actually like care about,
yeah,
hey, what's up? How you
like
doing?
you
What's
good?
going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's
I feel like a
where
lot of people
like,
miss that.
I mean, like I said, did I know that, coming out of Huntsville, we probably have 6 or 7 people that's in the league that's around us, our same age group? No clue. Like, I had no clue, but we all trained together, all worked out, and we just always kept up, and then now it's like, what you doing now? Same. Me and Nick joked about this the other day, like just about, you know, how he's in the league now and like how that whole story like played out. But like I've been in touch with Nick since, I mean, basically since college. Like now he's starting for y'all. Like, did I know that was
Yeah.
going to
That's
happen?
wild. Nah.
No,
But you didn't
no,
care
I
either.
didn't. I really did. He was just always a good dude. Like from high school,
Right.
he's always been like how he is now. He ain't never switched up. And I think that that is like, what people need to realize is like, man, this is a long game, man. This ain't no, hey, let me get cool with him because I know he got bread or I know he about to make it. Like, no, man. Like, and it's about that trust. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think it's gonna be hard, for if I ever were to talk to you or talk to anybody else that's in the league now, like, hey, bro, got an opportunity for you. Like, oh, great, man, you always been solid. Because I know y'all have vultures all the time, bro. Like,
Yeah, and that's the exact word it feels like when you haven't talked to somebody for years, and then they come back up like, "Hey man, I need some help. I need you. You know,
yeah,
I got this thing I'm doing. Help me out." It's like all right, man, but like I don't really
probably don't even know
like you
you got a
said, I don't.
kid, bro. Like, don't.
Yeah, it's like I don't really even I don't trust you like that. Like how am I supposed to trust you with like 50 bands? How am I supposed to trust you with my
Yeah,
money? Like come on, like it just doesn't make sense, and a lot of people don't
yeah.
realize
I
that.
hope that answers your question. I like to kind of give examples that way. It's a little bit easier. Like, okay, it's not just a short term thing.
Yeah, nah, but nah, it definitely answers my question because like I feel like every question, every answer that you've given me has been something about like the details or
Hmm.
the small things, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And while I'm terrible with names, I remember those things about people as well.
Yeah.
Like I might not remember somebody's name, but I remember that like I had a guy that I used to live next to in college, right?
Hmm.
And I remember his name, but for a minute I didn't, right? For a minute I couldn't, but I remembered that, every Thanksgiving his family would go skiing somewhere, or
Hmm.
he was a big surfer, or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I could remember those things. I could remember that he was an econ major and had a test
Hmm.
on Thursday. So I asked him how the test went. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Might not get the name down, but
Hey, don't you, bro? I was talking about this the other day. Don't you feel bad though? You have like 10 conversations with somebody, and you like, dang man, I can't remember my name. And like
oh,
you don't
all the
want to
time.
ask because you like, bro, we've talked 10 times, and I still.
But I know damn near everything about you right now, but your name is slipping right now. It is slipping. I just
Man, it happened to me the other day. I was like, man, I've chopped it up with this dude at church at least 5 or 6 times, and we talking business too. And I'm like, I cannot remember what his name is. So I was like, then I went to ask somebody else, and I was like, bro, I can't remember his name. And I'm like, come on, like, so and it's not like,
that's when nicknames get us, man. We keep calling everybody, bro. What's up, my
yeah,
guy?
yeah,
What's
yeah,
up? What's up, bro?
you
Nah, we
do
need to
it,
start using
you do it
names.
so much, and you're like, man, that's bruh. And I'm like, hey, what's bruh name? Man, I can't even tell you. Like, can't even call it. But no, it's
Man.
I try to be. I'm good with faces, but names are not. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not my thing, and I'm good with details too. So now I try to. I could tell you. I mean, I'm kind of like Chick-fil-A, bro. I could tell you what shirt you had on the day I met you, all that stuff. But the name, He just flips.
But you do a good job though. You do a good job. Like it's I know you got to focus on it. So it's tough though. It's
Yeah,
tough.
it is for sure.
But all right, man. So it wouldn't be business of athletes if I didn't ask you about the business part, man. So let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about like on the daily and economic development. Like what is it that you're doing, and
Mm.
and what are some of like the favorite deals that you've done? You know,
Hmm. Man, that's interesting. So
if you can
yeah,
talk about that. I know it's a
I
city
can
thing, so
disclose some. So I will say I think, and it's kind of hard to give scope without being in Troy. So I would kind of say Troy does not. When I got to Troy, there's not really a lot of. This is probably one of the coolest deals I'm in the process of doing now, and I think this is more so. It kind of ties into the networking aspect as well. So um, when I got to Troy, there wasn't really like nightlife or like we don't really have like a strip. You know, like most colleges have like a strip full of like nightclubs, restaurants, stuff like that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, um, we haven't gotten an opportunity to build that, and I've got probably two or three deals I want to talk about, but this is probably my favorite. Um, so who plays, from Huntsville,
Yep.
plays for the Dolphins now, but played at the Lions. So we used to train together with the same trainer back in Andy back in Huntsville. Well, man, I didn't really like know like we were in the same like kind of same sessions, things like that. Well, I ended up knowing his it's not his agent, but like basically his business manager, and so basically like it was real cool because like I kind of knew them and we kind of kept in touch. So I hit him up and was like, hey, like I know like y'all been looking at doing some stuff, like come down to Troy. Now keep in mind like they don't know anything about Troy, like a lick about it, right? I said, man, I got this opportunity for you. Like I think we can build like this like strip, right? And so they came down, loved it, and was like, man, I could like see this like being a thing. And so I think the funny part is like painting that picture for people because it's like they don't know anything about my city, don't know anything about it, but it's like that trust thing. It's like, hey, like you ain't never done me wrong in the last 10 years I've known you. Like we talking 1.5 $3 million deals that they're trusting me. Basically, they're like, this is gonna work, right? So man, we end up getting it. They end up getting the land, getting the deal. We're starting to do designs and like, I basically like kind of with my job, what I ended up doing for them was like, hey, I basically ran the play for them. Like they had to do was write the check. So like places like Smoothie King, Chipotle, because all those places have to call me like when they want to come to my city, right? So they're like, hey, we want to come, but we just want to be close.
Hey, that's boss talk right there. Let me stop you, man. That's boss. Hey, this man said they gotta call me when they want to come to my
I
city.
mean,
Look at that right there,
it
man.
comes through me. Let me say that. So basically, like all those places want to come, and so I'm like, well, hey, look, like Trey and Doug, like if you build, those apartments that have like the apartments on top and they have like the restaurants and stuff on the bottom, kind of like
Yep.
Providence and Huntsville, right? So I'm
Yep.
like, hey, look, like here's the vision, like y'all buy the land, I'll negotiate everything on your end, and like I'll get the tenants to you, and you just build the building, right? So they're like, but this seems too easy. I'm like, nah, this is what I do. Like I have to go in and basically go get investors to come in to do the thing. And so now like we're doing a deal now to where they're buying basically two corner lots where you can basically throw a rock and hit the dorms on campus. And like, man, they're going to do very well. Let me say that. And so I think one of the cool parts about that, basically, like they have now opened the door for more. We may have talked about this, like now more of like Trey's teammates are like, hey, what's up with this Troy city and like what you got going on up there? And so like now it's cool because they trust me, but like so now their teammates by like kind of not necessarily by default, but by association are like, all right, if he's your guy, then like I'm gonna rock with him too. If he can, I mean, what's it about? Hey, what's the biggest return you can make on my money? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I start
It's
working.
like you the plug, man.
Hey,
It's like you the plug. Everybody
hey,
want to
St.
find out who the
Patrick.
plug is, huh? Hey, Jays, you ghost, man. But everybody wants to find out who the plug is, and if somebody, it's like, hey, they get money over there.
Yeah.
Let's go get. That's what happens,
And I
right?
think, man, development is one of those things where it seems like a very like, you know, tall task. Now it does take some bread to do. However, like I think it's all about numbers. Like, okay, I've got a location, I've got the opportunity, I've got the tenants, I've got the students. Like, and I love that stuff. I could do it all day, like putting a deal together for people and like doing all the legwork, which is kind of really opened the door for me, like on the entrepreneurial side, to kind of start doing like some consulting for, you know, Trey and all these other like league players are like, hey, look, bro, I know you're busy playing football, so like let me do this for you. Like, let me handle all this for you because it's what I do.
Get the background
Yeah,
work.
like let me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just bring it to you and say, hey, look, like, and there's a NFL player where I won't disclose his name, but like just got off the phone with him and he was like, yeah, bro, hey, here, look, I'll work with you. Here's the amount. You just do everything and like just bring it to me and tell me what I'm gonna make, and then like we good. So and like obviously like this may not it's not gonna always be in Troy. It may be in a whole other city, but like
Yeah.
it's just the opportunity. So like that was a real cool deal. Got an opportunity to do a deal with Publix, Hobby Lobby, TJ Maxx, Rack Room Shoes, Ulta, and so I think Troy is growing, but it's given me an opportunity, like I said, be in some rooms with people that like probably would have never guessed I'd be in a room with. But there's so many, ins and outs, and I think I'll say this about cities, just from my perspective, like if you can find a need in a city, man, governments will help you subsidize things, give you incentives to come do things, and I don't think people know that. And may get in trouble for saying this because I work for a government entity, but I think that
Hey, we'll wipe it off.
nah,
You
I'm
know what I'm
playing.
saying?
I'll be good. But I think it's really just a leg up of like, hey, look, if you go to a city, like there's a city in Alabama. I won't give all the little nitbits away, but I think there are a couple of cities in Alabama, college towns, and college towns are they're a cash cow, man. You can go there and you know look at it, and I know because a lot of the athletes that are people who are listening are either in college or have gotten out. Like, go look at your school and look at what they didn't have. Like, oh man, when I wasn't here, like we didn't have X or we didn't have this restaurant, or because a lot of these restaurants and like tenants, they don't want to build it. They just want you to do it, and then they'll rent it from you, which
Yeah.
is passive income. I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole. Ground leases. I mean, there's a lot of things that people just don't know about that development side. There's a lot of bread to be made if you get in touch with the right people, find the right place. There's just a lot, and like I said, I could go on all day about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that just if there was one thing I'd leave, like go look at your city that you went to school in, and just think about the things that you didn't have, or that they still don't have, and think about what you could do to make an impact on that city. That it's like, we just won the Sun Belt Championship. I'll give you a great example. We don't have any bars in Troy. They have nowhere to celebrate like this past weekend. So that's what I was pitching to Doug and Trey. Like, hey, look, they're not going nowhere on the weekends. Like, oh, this makes sense. Let's just build the building, bring the club and all that stuff. And like, and not that I'm condoning partying, but I'm just saying like, it's part of college.
Man, you gotta have
Yeah,
fun,
you gotta
man. You gotta have
do your
fun.
thing. So I think that like, I think that's just part of college, and people deserve to have that experience because that's what people are paying for now. Like, you can go get a certificate to get a job online now. You don't have to do that. So, man, I hope that helps.
Nah, man, definitely does. Definitely does, man. It definitely does, cause that's really all that like business and entrepreneur stuff it is looking at opportunities, and then you got to run the numbers. Numbers is everything. Like the numbers is everything. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, I think this is gonna work." Like an investor, I've heard it a lot of times, but like hope is not a strategy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like if you putting money somewhere, like real estate investor, stock market investor, anything that you're investing
Mhm.
in, hope is not a
Yeah.
strategy, right? So you got to have the numbers to back it
And
up.
hard
So
numbers.
like,
Like, I'm a very optimistic person, but when it comes to real estate, I err on the side of like conservative, worst case scenario. Like, okay, if they're going,
risk management.
yeah, like I'm not going to go off a 99% occupancy because the possibility of that happening is very slim. So I'm going to go 65 and 70. Okay, can I still make money at 65 and 70% occupancy? Like, and that's still not worst case scenario, but that's pretty much like on the low end of owning an apartment. Like, okay, and that's the beautiful thing about real estate, man. It doesn't have to be fully occupied for you to make money. Like, and I think that's
Yeah.
kind of a misconception is people think, hey, I've got to have everything filled up. It's like, nah, it could be halfway if the numbers are right, and you could be
If the
jackpot.
numbers are right.
Like, so, man, I love this stuff, man. You got me hyped now.
Hey, listen, man. Look. I know we got time, man. I know we got time, but I could really sit here and talk numbers, talk business with you all day. But we're not gonna do that. We can make that part two. If we get a part two, we can make that part two. But I mean, look, if y'all take anything from this episode, is for me, it's been the details and the small things, man. Pay attention to the details. Pay attention to the small things. Anything you want to lead the people with, man, before we wrap.
Man, I think
And if not, that's cool
no,
too. But
I
go ahead.
think, man, I always live by this. And it goes into this details, and me and my wife live by this, and it's kind of a principle and mantra we kind of had. But man, it's especially in business, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you have to do something in one area, whether it's your marriage, your finances, it's gonna roll over into other things. So don't have to do anything. Like, don't have to do the numbers in business. Like, oh man, well, I'm not gonna keep writing this out, or I'm not gonna, go all the way to the worst case scenario. Like, no, do it. Like, because with money, man, unfortunately, you put yourself in a hole. It's really hard to dig yourself out. Like,
It's hard.
and I mean, I know people say, oh, file for bankruptcy. Yeah, well, that thing's on your credit for 7 years. So, like, I think, man, just try to do everything with excellence, man, and obviously, like, I know for me personally, like, obviously, I love the Lord, and I'm constantly praying about, how I can help and serve people, um, in the right way, and so I try to do that with an excellent mindset, and doing it how I would do everything else, and do it when nobody else is watching. How would I do this? So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing I'd leave is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And hey, take it for what it's worth, and hopefully you apply. Hopefully, I brought some value today. Is really was my goal, and so
Nah, you did, bro. Absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy you say that because that's something that my coach used to say. And it's one of the first episodes with my guy Maul. Like that's a quote we used to. He was building Make a Play Foundation, right?
hmm,
And that's a quote that we had said on that episode. Like, and it's just crazy. Things just keep popping
yeah,
up, and it's. I mean, but I believe that. I believe that the way you do anything is the way you do everything, man. So be detail oriented with everything,
hey,
and that's with anything. That's how it's gonna call into
you be
everything.
detail oriented, pancaking these boys, man, like this. I don't know. You doing these boys dirty out there.
Man, hey man, I appreciate it, man. I'm just trying to do my job, dog. I'm just trying to do my job. Hey man, tell everybody where they can find you on socials, LinkedIn, stuff like that.
Man, so LinkedIn, Cameron Rice, Instagram, I am Cam Rice. I do also do credit repair services as well. So that's creditx underscore on Instagram. You can get at me on that. I'm old school, so I got a Facebook too, Cameron Rice, and you can kind of keep up with me on there. And man, if you got any questions about anything from this episode or development, man, just holler at me, and I'll answer as much as I can.
Man, I appreciate you, and I'm sure they're gonna appreciate this episode, bro. We're gonna wrap right there, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace, bro.
Appreciate it.